again, and welcome to my second review today. Yes, for once the house is actually quiet, so I can get a little bit more caught up on this. So, anyway, this is my second review of the day, but it's my fourth review of Season 2. And for those wondering, in case you haven't watched before, I am a person who considers themselves to be a show watcher, but I am a show watcher who actually cares enough to read about all the lore and background and find out all the history behind the show. So I have much of the information that is from the books. I've only read the first 2 books so far. I am planning on reading the rest, but I don't like reading ahead. Anyway, I am, like I said, I consider myself a show watcher rather than a book reader, although I have read a lot of the information about the history and the lore. And the reason I do my reviews the way I do them is because I treat it as though it's the first time you're watching the series, because I'm sure it's possible that it could be the first time you're watching the series, and I don't want to spoil anything. What I do is I show the screen caps, talk about what happened, talk about what I think about what happened, and mention any kind of relevant background that has to do with that particular scene or conversation. So that is how I do my reviews. So if you have not read the books, and if it's the first time you're watching the show, you are safe. Anyway, this is the 4th episode of Season 2 called Garden of Bones. And this was the first episode this season. I mean, I don't have a problem with Season 2 like a lot of other people seem to have, but this is the first episode of the season where it ended with a WTF moment, and I was just like, what? If you just watched it, you know what I'm talking about. But on with the episode. We start out with the Lannister men chatting about who's the best fighter in Westeros, and one says, well, it must be the Mountain because he's the biggest man in Westeros, and one says, yeah, but a lion has claws, and a lion and a bull fighting with each other, I wouldn't bet on the bull. And they mention Jaime and say, well, yeah, if he ever gets out, because he's still being held prisoner by Robb. And then one mentions Loras, and the other one says, oh, come on, he's prettier than the Queen. And the other one says, I don't care if he's prettier, he's good with a sword. And they get a little joke in saying he's been stabbing Renly for years, and Renly's still alive. So he can't be that good with the sword. But anyway, and the horses are acting spooked, and they don't think there's anything out there. They're looking, but they don't see anything. And then, all of a sudden, boom, we get Grey Wind and Robb attacking this Lannister camp. So, this is just the beginning of the episode showing that Robb is still having good luck on the battlefield, so to speak. And of course, Grey Wind helps. And this leads us into our next scene. I don't usually complain about the show. 1 or 2 things here, I might say, meh, I don't like that. But this scene that's coming up here, there's a lot of people that have problems with this scene, or should I say this plot line. This is where Robb meets Talisa. However, the scene starts with our introduction to Roose Bolton, and you get the idea that Roose is a take-no-prisoners kind of guy, and he just wants to kill all the Lannister people, question the officers, torture them, and then just kill the rest. But Robb does not do things that way. And Roose also says that in his family they say a Negate man has few secrets, but a flayed man has none. When I first watched this, I didn't pay much attention, but Roose becomes very important, so pay attention to a lot of the stuff he says. He's not a nice guy, and he's not from a nice family, and we will be seeing more of him later. And, so keep in mind his theory on kill everybody and don't take the high road, just kill them and be done with it. And he likes flaying people, even though it's been outlawed. Flaying is skinning, for those of you who do not know that. When you first watch the show, flaying is skinning. So his family's known for skinning people. The flayed man is actually their banner. So Roose and his family are all about skinning people and torturing them and all kinds of fun. And they're supposed to be Northerners. So, all the Northerners aren't nice. Don't let the Starks fool you. The Boltons are really not nice. But anyway, then we get to Talisa. And she's helping the soldiers, and Roose says not to help the Lannister ones, and she's acting all outraged about the war and whatever, but, just going to talk here about the points of contention here. Book people hate anything and everything to do with Talisa, because Robb's love interest in the book is, not anything like this girl. We apparently don't see her in the book. She's a nobody. Robb apparently sleeps with her one time, and because he's dishonored her, he ends up marrying her. His story with Talisa here is completely different. Talisa is an invented character. She's not in the books, and people hate that and everything about it because of that. Now, my problem, as a show watcher, with Talisa is not so much that, but one, it's just ridiculous. He's in the middle of a war. He's not looking for a girlfriend. That's my one problem here. So it's just too Hollywoody. And another is she's talking back to him and being outraged about the war, and a female and a foreigner talking to the so-called king in the north, putting down all the stuff he's doing and speaking out against the war. First of all, if there wasn't a war, she wouldn't have a job. But yeah, there's a lot of problems with the whole Talisa storyline. She shouldn't be speaking up, and she's speaking up about things that she needs in order to make her own living, so it's just, a lot of things don't work with the whole Talisa plotline, and yes, we get more of her later, and I'm talking a little bit about how she becomes Robb's love interest, which isn't obvious, completely obvious in this episode, but that's who she becomes. She becomes Robb's love interest, and there's many, many problems with the whole Talisa plot. So, like I said, I don't usually complain, but that is one problem that the show had in Season 2, the whole Talisa thing. But anyway, moving on. Joffrey and his crossbow, torturing Sansa, more or less, holding the bow on her and saying that she needs to pay for her traitor brother's crimes, and Lancel tells this big story to the court about how, using some vile sorcery, Robb's army descended on the Lannisters with an army of wolves, and then they feasted on the blood of the slain, and a bunch of BS. It was one wolf, attacked a couple guys, but, you know, whatever. But the point is, Sansa's being punished because Robb won a battle. Makes perfect sense, right? Then again, we're talking about Joffrey, right? So, basically, he tells Meryn to leave her face because he wants her pretty. And then he tells Meryn to strip her. And keep in mind, this is all in front of the court and everything. And, in the book, she actually is completely naked from the top up after, Meryn strips her, but since Sophie Turner was 16, I guess that's why they changed it, just so she would be stripped down to her corset. But, basically, Tyrion comes in, and he's a little upset by this display, and tells somebody to give her something to cover herself and the Hound, who was looking kind of annoyed during this whole thing. He gives her his cloak. And Tyrion says to Meryn, what kind of man, or what kind of knight beats a helpless girl? And Meryn says, oh, the kind that serves his king. And Joffrey comes back with, I can do what I like, I'm the king. And Tyrion has this line, the Mad King did what he liked. Has your Uncle Jaime ever told you what happened to him? Another reference to Joffrey being the new Mad King. Incest is good, isn't it? Then Meryn says, oh, you're not allowed to threaten the king. And Tyrion says, hey, Bronn, next time Meryn speaks, kill him. See, that was a threat. That's the difference. I'm just educating my nephew. So it's an amusing scene once Tyrion comes in and interrupts it in the way in which he does so. Basically, Tyrion takes Sansa out of there, out of that situation. And he asks her as they're leaving, tell me the truth, do you want me to end this engagement? Because he's the hand of the king, I guess he's got some power. And, of course, she does her little parroting back thing, where she says, I'm loyal to Joffrey, my one true love. Boy, are you going to get sick of hearing her say that. She says it a lot. A lot. Okay. And Tyrion watches the way she's putting on this act and sticking to it no matter what. And as she's leaving, he says, more under his breath, Lady Stark, you may survive us yet. Because she's apparently sticking so well to this loyal act that she's putting on for them. So, as you can see, Tyrion doesn't exactly treat Sansa the way the rest of the Lannisters treat her. And, not to get into spoiler territory, but Sansa doesn't really seem to notice that fact. She just says Tyrion equals Lannister equals bad, and just doesn't trust him, plus he's a dwarf, ew. But anyway, yeah, that's the way you'll see Sansa's opinion as the series progresses. No matter how much Tyrion helps her, she's still just, yuck, not very nice to him. But anyway, then Bronn and Tyrion are talking about maybe Joffrey just needs a woman, and that'll get him unfrustrated, because all he has to do all day is pick wings off of flies, so maybe that'll help. Maybe if he gets laid, he'll be less of a dick, is basically what they're saying. And of course, Bronn's got the great line, there's no cure for being a cunt. Oh, Bronn. Bronn has got some of the greatest lines ever. So, what Tyrion does is he hires a couple of prostitutes, Daisy and Roz, of course. Daisy and Roz. At least Roz has a sidekick prostitute now, so it's not just her all the time. But anyway, and Roz starts touching Joffrey, and of course he's just like, no, go touch her. And Roz is like, oh, okay, he likes the girl and girl thing, like most guys in the world like. But no, that's not what Joffrey wants either. When Roz starts kissing Daisy and all that, Joffrey says, oh, can you hit her? And of course they're thinking, oh, he just likes kinky stuff. That's fine, that's fine. You know, they're prostitutes, they've seen it all. But she's like, you know, barely touching Daisy, just giving her tiny little smacks, and then he takes off his belt and tells Roz to use that. And that's when they start thinking, okay. And he tells her, you know, hit her harder. This is Joffrey's idea of fun. Yeah. You took Sansa away, so now we get the prostitutes to torture instead. And so he tells her to hit her harder. And then the glove's not even enough. And he grabs this torch and hands it to Roz. And honestly, you wonder what he wants her to do with the torch. It's Joffrey, you never know. But Roz tries to say too much pain will spoil the pleasure, and he just hands her the torch, and he wants her to hit her with the torch instead. And she, getting worried, Roz is like, you know, your uncle's not going to be happy about it if we come back injured after this. That's not why we're here. And he says he wants his uncle to see. He says that after Roz is done, she should take Daisy to Tyrion's chambers and show him what she's done. So yeah, he's such a little serial killer waiting to happen. He's just this. He gets two prostitutes, and this is what he wants to do. So basically, we get the impression, I mean, they don't really show anything more than Ra's going to hit Daisy, and Daisy crying and getting progressively more terrified, especially after his little comment about, "You'll show my uncle what you did." So, yeah. This is Joffrey. Remember I said back in the first season, you'll really begin to love Joffrey. And, yeah, he's definitely just full-on Mad King. He doesn't even care about sex. I mean, that was Robert's big thing. But Joffrey doesn't even care about that. He just wants pain, torture, sadism. He's just completely gone. Not even remotely a normal human being. So yeah, just another taste of how fun Joffrey is. So, we get that. And like I said, they kind of imply that maybe Roz killed Daisy on Joffrey's command, but we never really get the answer to that, or see Daisy again, I don't think. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, so we can assume she might be dead. I mean, they didn't show her dying, so maybe she's not, but could be. Anyway, then we get to Littlefinger arriving at Renly's camp. And Renly has quite a few little interesting lines in here. He calls Littlefinger his favorite whoremonger, and points out that he's now doing the Lannister's bidding, and did he even wait for Robert's body to be cold. And, Littlefinger just says, "Oh, well, I'm a practical man," and Renly says, "Just not a loyal one." And he flat out says, "I don't like you, Baelish. I don't like anything you say. I don't want you here 1 minute longer than you have to be." And Littlefinger's given side glances at Brienne, and Renly says, "Oh, you can trust Brienne. Her loyalty doesn't come with a cost." And Littlefinger tells him that many think that Ned erred by not supporting him, and Renly can see right through him. He's just like, "Oh, so you know that I'm gonna win, and you just want to cover your own butt. You want to keep your position in your head." And Littlefinger says, "Well, I'd give priority to my head." It's kind of funny. He says he's not seeking Renly's affection. He just says that he can help Renly. He says, when you get to King's Landing, you can face a siege or open gates. It's your decision. So, Renly can completely see through him. And I honestly think that if Dany didn't exist, I would probably be Team Renly. Because Renly seems like he actually would be a good king, and he doesn't fall for all the crap that the other ones fall for. But moving on, Littlefinger now has a little chat with Marjorie. And I haven't heard this, at least not that I remember, but I'm pretty sure book people hate this scene too. Because Littlefinger is being more transparent about what he knows and what he can use against somebody, and he never would do something like that in the book. He's much more subtle in the book, so book people have a real issue with the way Littlefinger is played, where he should be a lot more guarded and a lot more subtle than he is on the show. But, like I said in another review, I didn't pay much attention because I've never liked Littlefinger, so I don't really worry about how he's portrayed, because I've always thought he was a jerk anyway. But anyway, and he's poking at Marjorie's marriage and implying things about Renly and Loras, and who was Renly with on their wedding night, since he's with Loras right now, and he says, "Oh, well, a wealthy girl getting married is always something that breeds interest, if nothing else," and just, you know, pointing things out like that. And she actually talks right back to him and says, "You don't understand marriage, obviously. My husband is my king, and my king is my husband. Here's your 10. And walks away. So she's not really falling for Littlefinger's BS either. So, yeah. So, book people who are all lovey-dovey about Littlefinger don't like the way he's portrayed in the scene too, I'm sure. Anyway, moving back to the Red Wastes. One of Dany's riders has finally returned. And he has returned with stories of a city called Qarth. And she wants to know if they would be welcome in Qarth. And asks Jorah what he knows. And Jorah says that all he knows about Qarth is that the area outside the city's walls is called the Garden of Bones, and every time they turn away a traveler, the garden grows. So it's basically the only oasis in this place, and if they don't let you in, you're pretty much gonna die, is what we get from this little introduction to Qarth. And book people hate this too, the whole Qarth storyline. I think the problem they have with this part, like I said, I only have one problem with the Qarth storyline, and that's the very end. But I guess the problem is 3 people came to greet Dany and take her back to Qarth, and they wanted to see her in the book because they heard about the dragons. And in this, her rider discovers Qarth and brings her back, and she gets less than a warm welcome. So it is different. But it doesn't really change the end result, I don't think. But, you know, whatever. Then we go to Harrenhal, which looks quite cool. And, Harrenhal, or Torture Town, as you might want to call it. So, Hot Pie, Gendry, and Arya have been brought here, and they're talking about how Harrenhal's all melted, and Gendry says, what kind of fire can melt stone? And Arya says, dragon fire. Which is a little reference to the story behind Harrenhal. Really quickly here, Harrenhal was built by Harren the Black. It's the biggest, most impressive castle in Westeros, and the day he got it built is when Aegon Targaryen and his sisters took over and basically melted Harrenhal because Harren the Black would not bend the knee to them. So they basically used their dragons to melt Harrenhal and burn everybody inside. And the dragon fire was so hot it melted all the stone and killed everybody just by cooking them, basically. And ever since then, Harrenhal has been cursed, and every single person who's ever owned Harrenhal, their family has come to a grisly and gruesome death within the walls of Harrenhal. So just a little background on Harrenhal. And here we find out that they're torturing all these prisoners, and one dies every day, and just, it's all kinds of fun. This is Tywin's, basically, this is supposed to be his men holding this place until Tywin arrives, and it's being held by people like the Tickler and the Mountain and Amory Lorch, and they're just torturing the crap out of people and killing somebody every day, and asking them questions about the village and the Brotherhood. That's the Brotherhood without banners, which we don't really hear much about until season 3. But this is where we see that Arya has started her list. Her lovely list, which you will hear a lot on the show. She has started her death list. And the first 4 names on the list are Joffrey, Cersei, Ilyn Payne, and the Hound. Joffrey, because he ordered Ned to be killed. Cersei, because she let him. Ilyn Payne, because he's the one that cut off the head. And the Hound, because he's the one that killed her friend Micah. So that's the beginning of Arya's death list, which we'll hear a lot of. Moving back to the Stormlands, and Littlefinger confronts Cat. And Cat is pissed off. A lot. About what Littlefinger did to Ned. I mean, did he not think there would be consequences to holding a knife to her husband's throat? That's not quite the way to win a girl's heart there, Peter. But anyway, and he's saying, well, I think fate has just given us this chance, and she's like, have you lost your mind? Seriously? And then he tries to get to her by saying, do you want to see your girls again? And he flat out implies, blatantly, that Arya and Sansa are still in King's Landing. And he says that the Lannisters are willing to trade Arya and Sansa for Jaime. And Catelyn says, well, of course they will, but Robb will never agree to that. And he says, that's why I'm not asking Robb. Yeah, so, I guess he thinks that's how he's gonna try to get Catelyn to forgive him for the crap with Ned. What's that line about hell hath no fury? Really? Really, Peter? You think she's ever gonna forgive you? You think anybody's ever gonna forgive you for that crap with Ned? But anyway, So then to try to soften her up even more, he has the Silent Sisters, remember them, the ones that, the silent nuns of a sort that take care of all the dead bodies. He has them bring in Ned's remains so that she can bury Ned at Winterfell with his ancestors, where he belongs. And he says that Tyrion has sent the remains to her as a sign of good faith. So he's basically just trying to negotiate and get on Catelyn's good side, if there's any good side left in regards to him and the Lannisters, and get her to trade Jaime in return for Ned's remains and the 2 daughters, which they don't even have both of, but of course he didn't let her know that little fact, of course, because it's Littlefinger, and nothing he says can be trusted, ever. But Catelyn already trusted him once. Who knows? I mean, seriously, it's with Catelyn, she's... You know my opinions on Catelyn, and the way she trusted Littlefinger, and then captured Tyrion, and of course the way she treats Jon. But, yeah. So that's basically what's going on here, is Littlefinger trying to apologize and get her to agree to give Jaime up. And once she gets Ned's remains, she doesn't even want to talk to Peter anymore. She just wants to mourn, I guess, and she sends him away. And that's the gist of this scene. So we don't really get the answer yet as to whether or not Catelyn is going to go along with this or not. We have to wait to find out if she's going to or not. So, let's see. After this, we're gonna go back to Torture Town. Oh, I'm sorry, Harrenhal. And this is where they discovered the mountain, the new mountain. He's been recast. And yes, he will be recast again. This is the one that's the least mountainous. Haha. Yeah, the Clive or something. I don't even remember exactly. There was a different guy that played him in season 1. And then there's this guy. And then he's going to be played by somebody else in season 4. But anyway, this is where they find out that the mountain picks who's going to be tortured. And Hot Pie was told by the one guy that if he stares at him, he won't pick him. And the guy that told him that is staring at the mountain. They're all refusing to look at him. But the guy who told Hot Pie this is staring at the mountain, and then the guy gets picked. So that didn't work very long, did it? So this is how when we see the little bit of torture that they're doing here, where they take the guy and they ask him all these questions about the Brotherhood and whatever, and they tie a bucket onto his chest and put a rat inside the bucket and ask him questions, and then they hold a torch up to the bucket while they try to get their answers, because obviously it's going to be easier for the rat to chew through the person than through the bucket. Fun stuff. And this is tame compared to most of the stuff the mountain does. Believe it or not. And the Tickler is the one running the interrogation. And in this scene we see that when this guy finally gives in and tells the Tickler what he wants to know and who was helping this Brotherhood without banners that they're talking about, even after he gives in and tells them what they want to know, they keep torturing him until he dies. So how is that motivating? If I don't tell you, you torture me. If I do tell you, you still kill me. I don't think they know how torture works. Then again, the mountain is running this camp, so that's what you get. Yeah, the mountain. He's a little cray-cray. We don't even really talk to him here that much, but that's because it's a different actor. I don't even think it is an actor. I think it was a stuntman that was filling in for him because they didn't have anybody for the part. Because the guy who played him in season 1 was now on Spartacus. So he left this show to be on Spartacus for a bigger role on Spartacus. And so this guy's just a stuntman filling in for him and doesn't even talk much, I believe. But that's how things are going at good old Harrenhal. Alrighty. And after this whole thing happens, they show Arya adding 2 more names to her list. So she's got Joffrey, Cersei, the Queen, Ilan Payne, the Hound, and now she adds Polliver, who's the one that captured them and didn't give them the prisoners' food, in the mountain. So that list is getting longer. Then we go to more Baratheon brother bonding. Renly and Cat versus Stannis and Mel. So Stannis is saying that he hadn't thought to find Catelyn in the Stormlands, and she repeats her line from season 1, I had not thought to be here. And Renly makes a comment about the banners, because Stannis' banner isn't the regular stag of Baratheon, it's a stag inside a fiery heart. And Renly has a line. He says, well, I guess it would be very confusing if we used the same one. He's got a point. Alright, and then he meets Melisandre, and he says, oh, you must be the fire priestess I heard so much about. Now I understand why you found religion in your old age, Stannis. And he says he's relieved, because he never thought Stannis was a fanatic. He just thought he was charmless, rigid, and a bore, but not godly. So he's implying that Stannis is only going with Melisandre because she's cute. So yeah, I would honestly pick Renly. If I wasn't already Team Targaryen, I'd be Team Renly. But anyway, so Melisandre says that Renly should kneel to Stannis because he's the Lord's chosen, and he was born amidst salt and smoke. And Renly comes back with, salt and smoke? Is he a ham? So, another fun line. Oh gosh, I guess that's a reference to Dragonstone. I don't know, because Stannis was born in Dragonstone. Whatever. Dany was also born in Dragonstone, and she was reborn amidst salt and smoke. See my prophecy video if you want to know why I'm pointing these things out. Azor Ahai, anyone? But anyway, so Catelyn breaks in and says, you know, if they were her sons, she'd lock them in a bedroom and knock their heads together till they remembered that they were brothers. And Stannis reminds her that Ned supported his claim and his integrity cost him his head. Now keep in mind also that Stannis was the only other person that knew about Cersei's kids, and he never told anybody. He just let Ned go there and find out even after Jon Arryn was killed, and then Ned got killed. He never said a stinking word to save Ned. But whatever. Everybody loves Stannis. Well, everybody that's a book person almost. Still not getting that. But anyway, so, and Stannis goes on to say that the throne is his by right, and all who deny it are his foes. Kind of like that George Bush comment, you're with me or you're against me. Something along those lines. And Renly says the whole realm denies it. From Dorne to the Wall, old men and little babies deny it. Everybody denies it. He says you never wanted any friends, no one wants you as a king, and a man without friends is a man without power. Good points all. And of course Melisandre ends with, look to your own sins, Lord Renly. The night is dark and full of terrors. Her favorite line. So that's how that went. Really well. Then we meet, or see, Qarth. And we meet the 13. They are, I guess, the 13 richest people in Qarth. And richest people equals the government, I guess. They say that they're the government. And they're stopping her at the gates. And Dany says that she thought they were welcome. And Jorah says, well, would you let a Dothraki horde through your doors? And she just looks back and she's like, horde? Because she's barely got any people left. Oh, jeez. So the Spice King. He doesn't have a name, but everybody refers to him as the Spice King. He is the one that comes out and talks to her, and he's very condescending. She starts to introduce herself, and he interrupts her and says, "Oh, Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen, welcome to the greatest city that will ever be." And she's trying to be polite, and she's like, "I've heard many good things about Qarth," and he's like, "No, Qarth." So, yeah, he's just being a big old jerk. And she wants in, and before he'll let her in, he wants to see the dragons. And he says they don't believe that you have dragons because, you know, dragons have been gone for 150 years, so we have to see the dragons before we'll let you in. And she, of course, doesn't trust this. She's like, well, what's to stop them from trying to take the dragons? So she's like, well, let us in and let us eat and let us have water, and then you can see the dragons. And he says, no, that's okay. And she says, I'm not a liar. And he says, I don't think you are, but I don't know you, so what does my opinion matter? And she's getting annoyed now, obviously. And she says that where she comes from, guests are respected, not insulted at the gates. And he tells her, well, then maybe you should go back. Yeah. And then she's really ticked at this point, because she knows her people are going to die if they can't get into Qarth. So she loses her temper a bit here. And she says that when her dragons are grown, they'll burn cities to the ground and they'll burn Qarth first. And he makes a lovely dig at her here. He's like, wow, you really are a Targaryen. Because half the Targaryens went insane. And he justifies this by saying, well, you just said that you'd die if we didn't let you in, and now you say you're going to come back and burn us? You can't do both. So he's insinuating that she's nuts. And he's not hearing any of it. And then Zoan Doxus. Nobody can pronounce his name. I don't know why. They say it on the show. Zoan Doxus is his name. And if you have the captioning on, you even know how it's spelled. But Zaro comes to her rescue. And he says that he wants them to let her in. And the Spice King's like, well, she just threatened us. And he says, well, she's the mother of dragons. Do you expect her to watch her people starve without breathing fire? I like that line a lot. And he says, besides, I'm just a savage from the Summer Isles, and you let me in, and Qarth is still standing. So basically, he invokes this thing called Sumai and cuts his hand. I don't know. He says that he is going to vouch for Dany and her people and her dragons. And that's how he gets them to let her in. So, apparently, if an enemy if somebody in the town will vouch for somebody who's perceived to be an enemy, they can do that and they'll be let in. I don't know, it might be explained more in the book, but probably not, because the way she got to Qarth in the book was different. So, yeah, who knows for sure. But that's basically how Dany gets in on the show. So, but yeah, that was our introduction to Qarth. And like I said, I didn't really have that big of a problem with it. I was kind of annoyed, though, with, you know, the way that they had the guy imply that Dany's insane after she loses her temper. But that's because I'm Team Dany, and I was ticked at that guy, too. You know? Obviously, her argument didn't make a lot of sense, but still. I mean, keep in mind, Dany is still a teenage girl. She's not quite always going to say the right thing at the right time. But again, as I said, it was a bit different in the book, and the Qarthine people came to bring her back. They wanted to see her. So it's a little bit different, and I guess that's some of the problems that come from changing the storyline. I'm not really sure why they changed the storyline. I mean, I'm not complaining. It's just it seems like a strange change. But anyway, then we go back to Harrenhal, and we see that that guy's dead. So, yeah, good times. And, then, Gendry is the next one that gets picked, so I guess this is the next day. Gendry is the next one that gets picked to be tortured. And Gendry knows nothing about this village or the Brotherhood without banners, so how he's going to answer their questions, because it's the only questions he ever asks. How he's going to answer these questions is beyond us at this point. But what happens here is just as they're about to strap the rat onto Gendry, he gets rescued just in the nick of time. That doesn't happen that often in this show. I don't think it happened that way in the book, because Gendry is taking the place of another character who wasn't at Gendry was at Harrenhal in the book, but this whole torture scene thing I don't think happened in the book. I don't remember exactly how Harrenhal went, because they do change a little bit about Harrenhal. But anyway, he gets saved by Tywin's arrival. And Tywin basically tells these men that they're stupid for not using these people as servants instead of just torturing and killing them. And he asks Gendry if Gendry has any skills, and Gendry says that he is a smith. And Tywin just gives them a look like, what did I just say? And Arya gets too close or something and gets knocked down, and Pulliver threatens her. And Tywin's like, oh, you won't threaten her. Or Pulliver threatens her but calls her a boy. And Tywin says, no, you're not going to kill her, and she's a girl. Can't you see that? So, Tywin knows a lot more than his men. That's why he's in charge. And he decides that well, he asks Arya why she's traveling as a boy, and she says because it's safer, and he says, she's smart. Smarter than some of these men. And he looks at his Lannister guards, and he decides he's going to keep Arya as a cupbearer. And yes, she was somebody else's cupbearer in the book. Get over it, people. Roose Bolton was at Harrenhal, she was his cupbearer. And as we saw earlier in the other scene, Roose Bolton's with Robb. So things have been changed. Get over it. Anyway, so then we get one of the funniest scenes, and one of my favorite scenes, because I said earlier, I absolutely love Eugene Simon. And he's the one that plays Lancel, and I'm still wondering where the heck he's been since season 2. But anyway, I love this scene. It is so funny. Basically, and it's almost word for word from the book too, might I point out. But, Tyrion greets him with, your visits are too few, cousin. And basically, Lancel has come there to tell Tyrion that Cersei wants Pycelle released. And Tyrion says, oh, you waited all day to tell me this? And Lancel says, no, I told you right away. And Tyrion's like, oh, at this hour, the middle of the night. What are you doing with Cersei in the middle of the night? Oh, yeah. What are you doing with Cersei there, Lancel? Anybody see episode 110? Okay, so, Lancel tries to defend her and says, oh, she works from dusk till dawn, and Tyrion says, oh, she must be thankful to have you in her chamber helping her from dusk till dawn. Oh, this scene's too funny. And then, when he walks past Lancel, he notices that Lancel smells like lavender oil, which I guess is what Cersei uses as perfume or something. And he asks if he got knighted before or after Cersei started sleeping with him. And of course Lancel's denying it. And Tyrion asks Lancel what he thinks Joffrey will say when he finds out that you're sleeping with his mother. And of course Lancel's like, no, don't tell him. And he's like, I only did what I was told. And Tyrion's like, what, you can't defend yourself? She took you against your will? What? And he says, Tywin told me to listen to her. And he says, well, did our father also tell you to sleep with her? Oh, this scene is too funny. I love it. I love this scene. Oh, gosh. And he's like, I just did what I was told. And Tyrion's like, oh, so you hated every minute of it, huh? Oh, my gosh. He's playing this boy like a fiddle. It's so funny. And Lancel's just given up at this point. He can't fight with Tyrion. He cannot outwit Tyrion. It's just not possible. And he's like, fine, I will leave, just don't tell anybody, don't tell anyone. And Tyrion's like, no, you're not gonna leave. Lancel's like, what? Totally thrown off at this point. He's like, no, you're not gonna leave. You're gonna keep sleeping with Cersei. That's what he tells him. You're gonna pleasure her whenever she wishes, stay with her every moment, do exactly as she tells you, but you will tell me every single thing Cersei is doing. What she's saying, who she's talking to, what she's planning. You will be my double agent. So it's a great scene. I love this scene. He's basically just blackmailing Lancel into being a spy for him on Cersei. And it's great. It is an absolutely brilliant scene. And it's perfect. And it involves one of my favorite actors. I like Peter Dinklage too, but Eugene Simon does not get enough time in this show. Like I said, he pretty much disappeared after season 2, and I want him to come back, because I know there's more to Lancel in the books. I've read about him on Wiki. But anyway, so, that's that scene, and it is one of the most hilarious scenes ever. I don't think anybody's ever not liked this scene. And it is from the book. So the book people don't even have complaints about the scene, as far as I've heard. So anyway, that's how Tyrion gets his own little spy. And let's see here. Basically getting even for Pycelle spying on him for Cersei. Now Lancel's going to be doing so. And I love it. It's funny. And it's just fun. It's a fun scene. And is intelligent as well. And, of course, I'm sure there's people who are going to say, oh, well, that's because it's from the book. But, whatever. The point is, it's a good scene. I like the books, I do, but, you know, I'm not one of those book people. I will point out the differences, because I'm hearing about them constantly in the book people reviews. So I will point them out occasionally, but I don't have quite the complaints that they have. Anyway, there's a lot of screen caps in this scene because I absolutely love this scene so much. And again, I don't get why people did not like season 2. Because you get scenes like this. And this is one of the best scenes, I think, in the series. And it's not even action or anything, it's just a conversation, but it's just so well done and funny. Really funny. So it's just a great scene. And you get a lot of those great scenes in season 2 because Tyrion's the Hand, and that's where he works best. And so you get all kinds of comedy gold and brilliant planning and strategizing when Tyrion's the Hand. So just because of that, I think, is a reason why I like a lot of season 2. And then we get to part 1 of the final scene. And this scene, again, I like Davos. I do not like Stannis, so I'm kind of always torn when I see them, because I'm like, yay, Davos, ooh, Stannis. But anyway, a lot of people like Davos. Moving on, what they're talking about here is how Davos keeps his severed knuckles around his neck for luck, and Davos says that it reminds him of where he used to be and where he is now. And then Stannis has an interesting line here. He says, you are a hero and a smuggler, but a good act does not wash out the bad, nor a bad act the good. Interesting. Considering, I know, another Stannis rant. Stannis has only ever done one good thing ever in the entire 4 years of the show. Ever. And that was at the end of season 4. Every other thing he's done has been shady and questionable and just not remotely honorable. But, according to him, a good act does not wash out the bad. Practice what you preach, Stannis. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, in that scene, he's telling Davos he wants him to smuggle Melisandre to shore. And because, Davos used to be a smuggler. And he says that no one must know, and they'll never speak of it again. And another line is, Davos says there's cleaner ways to win a war. And Mr. Honorable Stannis says cleaner ways don't win wars. Mr. Honorable Stannis. But anyway, then there's a little conversation between Melisandre and Davos about, oh, are you a good man? And he says his parts are mixed, and she says, well, part of an onion is black, with rot it's a rotten onion. And she claims, oh, she's good, she's a warrior of light and life and whatever. And then she goes on to ask him about if he's cheated on his wife, and he doesn't want to talk about it. And she accuses him of wanting her, saying he wants to see what's under her robe. And I didn't see any kind of indication that Davos wanted her. Davos hates her, but whatever. And she says that, oh, you'll get to see what's under my robe. And they go to this little tunnel underneath Renly's camp is where they are, in case you were wondering. But they barricaded the passage, and she says they can't block our passage. And he also says that it's strange that the Lord of Light asks her to work in shadows, and she says that shadows can only exist in light, and the brighter the light, the darker the shadows, or something along those lines. And she says, shadows are servants of light, children of fire, and all this other stuff, and the light actually lights up by itself, the lantern. And she drops her robe, and she's wholly pregnant. After, two episodes. And she's pregnant enough to have this kid. Time is a little funny, or shadow babies are. One of the two. And she starts going into labor, and her necklace lights up, which always happens when some weird, funky stuff is going on with Melisandre. You'll notice every time she's doing something weird, her necklace lights up. And Davos is flipping out at this point and says, gods protect us, and she says that there's only one God, and he only protects those who serve him. And then she goes into labor and has a lovely, lovely, bouncing bundle of shadow demon joy. It's a boy. Woohoo! She gave Stannis a son. Yay? Should they send cigars? Yeah, she just gave birth to a shadow demon. Perfectly normal. Because that's what Honorable Stannis does. Impregnates people with shadow demons. Because he's so darned honorable. Yeah. So, like I said, it's a bit of a what the moment. Yeah. I love the end of this episode because it's just like, what just happened? Oh, that's right, this is a fantasy. Thank you for reminding me. Oh my god, what happened? So yeah, that's the way the 4th episode ends. Garden of Bones. Of course, that was only a reference to the place outside Qarth, but yeah, it was an interesting ending, I must say. One of my favorite moments of the entire season, just because it's so incredibly freaky. And this also goes back to what I said in my previous review about she was insinuating that having a son with her would somehow assure Renly a victory that she saw in the flames. So I guess she's got some plans for her shadow demon baby. Should be interesting to see what wonderful and exciting things he goes on to do with his life. Yeah. I mean, I love this moment. But I will not say that it's because of Stannis doing something honorable that gives us this moment. It's definitely a little shady. But hey, it's interesting at least. It's interesting. And now we're left to wonder what Shadow Demon Baby's gonna do. Shadow Demon Baby that has a gestation period of, what, 3 days or something? I don't know. So, definitely one of the most interesting moments in Season 4, I will say. And that's why I love this episode, just because at the end you're like, ow, my head just started hurting really bad when I saw that. Fun, though. Definitely fun. And this is why Game of Thrones is so fun. Because they trick you into forgetting that it's a fantasy. But it is. And then when the fantasy hits you, boy, does it hit hard. And it's just plain fun. And that's why I love this show. Now, there's a possibility I might be able to get another review out today, but we'll see. Like I said, today's the only day I've actually had the whole house to myself and had some quiet. So that's why I got 2 reviews out. I'm going to try for a 3rd, but we'll see what happens, because, I still have to, eat and stuff. So, anyway, hopefully you'll stick around for my next review, which may be out later today, but we'll find out, because YouTube is acting a little funny. But anyway, in the meantime, hope you keep watching and hope you come back. Bye, all.